AM with my co-host.
Jeremy, KD5, YUZ.
And tonight we are actually going to be going over ham radio and how it helps in emergency situations, whether it's blizzards, fires, floods, and other disaster type situations. Um, I know Jeremy has a lot more experience with this than I do, and I'm sure a lot of our BC Plus members that have done CERT and search and rescue do as well. So we're going to have a point at some point where we want to get your feedback on how you have used ham radio in those situations or assisted in those situations with ham radio. So, Jeremy, take it away.
Well, we all know that the inevitable disaster will strike, not knowing where or when until it happens. I know there are folks out in the West Coast that have been burdened with the fires, have lost everything they own. Then in the Midwest, there has been the foot inches of snow and ice. For instance, here in Oklahoma, we've got, I believe the last update I saw was 12 days below zero. Um, Personally, I have not seen more than just 2 or 3 days below zero here in southern Oklahoma, but we fixing to get it. And then out on the East Coast, they've had the snows. I know Jeremiah up in that area, I probably got close to 2+ feet of snow out of this last snowstorm that come across. Uh,
Actually, no.
really
We got maybe 3 or 4 inches.
nice. I know I've got a friend of mine that's out in West Virginia, and he showed a yardstick, stuck it off in the snow in the middle of his front yard, and it went up to about midway up his forearm. And
Um, Jeremy, your audio just cut out. Your audio. Okay, give us just a second here.
all right, how's that?
Better. Um,
Oh,
I'm wondering if your phone's paired to your headset and something's triggering on your phone.
no, the phone's even turned off right now, so I don't know. Anyways, having a communication equipment that can help you in those types of need. Um, Lose power, a radio will always get through. I know um, with the storms we have around here, we use national calling, and that's what gets us information relayed. Uh, there's going to be times that cell phones is not going to be the answer. For instance, we saw where the storms down in the southeast took out the cell towers, and also on the east coast, nobody could make or place a phone call, but yet radio shined. And that's when us as amateurs need to step up and make sure we have our gear ready at all times to be able to make those type of contacts for other people that are is either injured or trying to do a damage report or trying to check on their loved ones. So um, I have one of my HTs, the 878, that is set up on national call. And I also have our secondary frequency that we use here locally uh, as the alternate channel. And it's always shined for us. Anybody have any instance that they've used amateur radio here recently with the weather that we've had to either a relay information or get help to others?
Well, well, looks like Larry's raising his hand, and so does Jason. Um,
Okay.
let you pick which one you want to go to, Jeremy.
Uh, who was the first one?
Larry was first.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Larry.
Okay, yeah, I'm on. We use it all the time at the EC to run the weather nets, and we also use it sometimes with search and rescue because we've got some guys with my Aries Races group take their radios out and they turn on their APRS, and we can kind of track exactly where they're at.
Yeah, that's come in handy around here as well. All
All
right.
right.
Mr. Jason, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, here in Atlanta recently, actually just last weekend, we had the most snow and ice we've had in probably the last 5 years. And we had the Skywarn net running so people could report road conditions because it wasn't safe for the emergency responders to be out on the roads making those checks. So we took them in via our local repeater, and it was quite an interesting experience being part of that for the first time.
Yeah, that for somebody who's not been around it or utilized it on a normal, then it is an eye opener just how big of a tool this
Yeah.
has for you being an amateur radio operator.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm in a condo, and actually, it made me decide to look into some better antenna situations where I can operate a little bit better because I could hit the repeater from here, but it's a little bit noisy. So actually, I'm looking into some better setups after that.
Okay.
One of the things you might want to look into if you don't already have one is actually a J pole that's made out of ladder line that you can hang up on one of your windows.
That's exactly what I'm looking into, and I've also ordered a blade antenna for the 2 meter frequency that also hangs in the window.
All right, awesome. All right, and let's get Dr. Greg pulled up here. All right, there you go, Greg.
Okay, good deal. So, couple things. A member of the several amateur radio clubs here in the local area. The largest club is the Tulsa Amateur Radio Club. They've been around for 100 years, and they have what's called a superlink system, and it covers up into southeast Kansas, eastern half of Oklahoma, down into northeast Texas, over into northwest Arkansas, southwest Missouri. It covers the footprint of this repeater system. There's 16 repeaters that are linked, and it covers 35,000 square miles. And what they do is they have a pre-weather net. So if you have severe weather, the club will start up a weather net, and then the National Weather Service has the ability to, if the weather gets severe enough, they can come in and actually take over usage of the repeater system to take reports of severe weather, tornado wind speed, hail, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something that they have a lot of participation in, obviously. The other thing I was going to share was when they had the storms that hit North Carolina. I had a friend that lived in Florida, and they were looking for a family friends of theirs that were right in the middle of all that. And they called me on Saturday evening and said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody in this area. Is there any way you could help us?" Well, of course, the folks out there were running a net and they were on Broadcastify because it was on a local repeater there in the area, and you just couldn't. It was near Charlotte, but you couldn't. No, there was no way I was going to hit it from there, and they didn't have All Star or anything like that. So I was able to listen to it on Broadcastify, and I got the guy that was listening or that was running the net, looked him up on QRZ, found his email address, and emailed him, said, "Hey, I'm looking for this family for some folks that were in that immediate area." And what they did was they actually called out on their net looking for this family. Well, that was about 10:30 at night our time. And by the next morning, 8 a.m., somebody had found them. They had managed to find a hotel room safe away from all the danger. And the guy, he reported back to me and let me know that the family was safe. And so I was able to then reach back out to the folks that were looking for them and let them know, hey, this family is safe and secure. So anybody that wonders about, is ham radio useful, I think that kind of speaks for itself.
Most definitely. I made contact with the station while I was listening to their traffic. Somebody had called in. Uh, I believe they were out of Wyoming and was trying to get a hold of somebody. They contacted a station operator. I believe it was in Ohio, and he started calling out for that particular station with the call sign they gave him, and he was real scratchy and garbled. It was on 20 meters, and it wasn't probably 15, 20 minutes later, he came back in and almost all quieting. Said that he was able to find a piece of barbed wire in the some of the rubble and was able to get it to tune up with his radio. I don't remember the rig, but was able to relay back to the family member that started looking for him.
Yeah.
And was able to make contact that way. So uh, whether it be a handheld HF or any other digital mode, All Star, Echolink, our radios are going to be the biggest tools for us in that type of time frame. All righty. Appreciate that, Dr. Greg. All right, Mr. Larry. Let's see. Go ahead, sir. Oh, okay. I saw your hand raised.
There you go. All right. Yeah, to the about the antenna he wants to build. I picked up plans on the internet to build a J pole, a 2 meter 440 J pole, and it works. I mean, it's down to 1.5, 1.4 on 2 meter, and less than 2 on 440. And you can get the plans online. And the guy that I gave it to is 25 miles from the repeater and hits it like a champ. I'm done.
That's cool. Does
Okay.
it state on what kind of materials needed to build that with?
I had to get a 3 foot stick of 3/8 all thread. I had to buy a coupler, CB antenna thing, and then you have to get a stud that goes from fine thread to coarse thread, so you can put it in there, and then a stick of, God, I think it was a 10 foot stick of um, don't tell me, EMT, and an L bracket or an
Okay.
L bracket. Yeah, an L bracket. I had drilled it out, so it wasn't bad. I mean, I made it in a day once I got all the parts.
Yeah. Being able to ascertain all the pieces there is one of the biggest things.
One thing that I actually have that I completely forgot until we got on this subject, because I haven't used it in so long, is I actually have a LiPo battery box that actually has a spot, or it's basically a spotlight with
Especially
as bright
if
as
I
it
have to
is
keep
on one
asking.
end. And then on the other end, you've got your Anderson power poles, a 12-volt DC jack, like your cigarette lighter in your car, and then it's got USB quick charge plugs on it.
Those
So
are handy.
this one is a 10 amp hour one. My one roommate took it on a camping trip that they went on, and they were able to keep everybody's phones charged the entire weekend.
Now, do you have a
And
solar charger that you take with you when you take that out?
I do not have a solar charger. Um, this is something I plug in here at the house, charge it up, and then just when I need to get ready to use it, like if I'm going to take radio, like my uh, 710 out in the car with my ATOS 120 HF antenna, then I'll take and run it off of this instead of the car battery. That way I'm not sitting there idling the car, adding to the engine hours and wasting gas with as expensive as gas is these days.
Yeah.
Even with that AGM battery under the hood, you still want to be able to start that car, even if it is, powered by hamsters with espresso beans. So
Yeah, because when you're driving and we're on the phone or something, I can always tell when you throw the coffee beans in there.
yeah, because you can hear it on the speaker on the audio in the car. So just in case anybody's wondering what this looks like on the inside, let me pop the cover on it and show you guys. Um, so there's the battery, and then there's the plugs, and right here is the actual power switch to turn on the plugs. But this switch over here is actually the power switch. This one right here is the one for the light. And the battery's connected with a set of Anderson power poles. And what you can do is you can actually take and use the Anderson power pole charger to charge this. Or if you can find a bigger battery pack that's the same dimensions, you can put it in here instead of that 10 amp hour one. And I believe you can get this exact same one with a 15 amp hour battery in it. So,
Now, when you're running your radio off of that, what's the longest amount of time that you've ran and it not go dead on you?
um, the 710, probably about 3 hours at 100 watts.
Okay.
The 578 until I got bored, and then I turned it off.
That's not bad because those HF rigs can pull the juice.
Yeah, I think it's 22 amps, 22 or 23 amps. And then of course, the one thing you can do is if you get the 878 USB-C battery, which we do
Hmm.
have in stock now, you can get one of those and just run the Type A cable to USB-C to the bottom of the battery and recharge your handheld batteries with it, with the power box.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
And if you don't
Now,
have one of those batteries, the other thing you can do is get the power adapter for the mobile charging cradle kit and plug that into the 12-volt plug on this, the cigarette lighter plug, and just set the radio up in it to charge the battery back up.
now,
So,
did you buy that pre-made or did you build that yourself?
oh, I bought this pre-made.
Okay.
You've seen my soldering skills before. There ain't no way I'm building this without blowing myself and that battery up.
Oh, I was trying to give you benefit of the doubt. And Greg, I liked it. I like that.
Where is the fun in that? Still having my eyebrows. That's where the fun in that is. I've seen that episode of Mythbusters with the testing the static from a cell phone and gasoline in a plexiglass chamber. They burned off Adam Savage's eyebrows, and he says the famous line, "Am I missing an eyebrow?" And Jamie responds back with, "Yeah, and some hair too." And he goes, "You're kidding me." He goes from laughing to just dead serious in an instant.
Yeah, that can be a hindrance there. All right. Anybody else have any examples of when they've had to use the radio to get aid, send aid, or relay aid?
I can think of an example I've got.
Yeah.
2016 or 2017. I've got to look up the date, but the tornadoes that ran through Kokomo, Indiana. Me and Andy chased that storm and um, relaying what we were seeing to the Skywarn repeaters. and listening for the damage reports and knowing where exactly the storm was and where the tornadoes were spawning at, so we could try and stay out of the way because cell phone service was spotty after the storm ran through. Make
Yeah.
sure we weren't in the way of first responders.
Now, I don't know about in that area. I know with Greg, he's just up in the northeast part of the state. And with me being down here, there's a link. It's 147, 110, KB5 LLI repeater network, covers from Fort Worth, Texas, all the way up to I-270 in Kansas. And
Wow.
I believe as far west as Amarillo. There's
Okay.
DMR machines in it, analog machines in it, and N50UN out of Norman gets on there quite a lot, especially when there's severe weather.
Okay. Um, I know as far as Indiana goes, the last I knew, all of the machines that did dual purpose general ham radio chatter as well as Skywarn, they had a mode that was set up where they could all be switched when they were in Skywarn to be linked.
Yeah.
So the whole state that was running a Skywarn net would be covered.
Yeah, all of that link network for the LLI network, it also is tied to Oklahoma Weather Talk Group 31408.
Okay.
All right. Rod, Kilo Charlie 3, he said that he had an example on it. Let's see if we can find it here. There we go. Kilo Charlie 3, Whiskey Uniform Tango. All right.
Yes, this was a couple months ago. I was got a listing on a local repeater and had a gentleman call saying, "Hey, I've got an individual needs emergency medical assist," and I ended up basically calling 911 on my cell phone and relaying the information. And it's unfortunate because I was in another county from where he was, and they ended up having to transfer it to another 911 office, and was able to get the information that he needed to be able to get that individual taken care of.
Yeah, when it comes to those type of emergencies, I've heard people call in Texas, and a station out of southwestern Oklahoma would respond and get the aid to them. So I can't say it enough. Our radios is the biggest asset, not just ourselves, but to our neighbors.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. Anybody got anything else they want to add to it?
Um, Dave on YouTube, just a heads up. I'm taking a look real quick to see why you didn't get the email. I'm not sure if your email changed because I'm seeing 3 different email addresses in there for you. So that might be why you didn't get the email.
All righty. Just kind of looking through the gallery here of everybody, making sure I didn't pass up somebody who had a hand up. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Hi, Jonathan. Go ahead,
Okay,
sir.
all right. So this happened a few years ago in Oregon, probably about 10 years ago now, between two of my buddies, two of my ham buddies. I actually served in Mars with both of them too, but they met because one of them was on Mount Hood. He was new to the area. It was wintertime, and he got his car stuck up in the snow, about 3 feet deep. So all he had with him that worked, because there was no cell service at that time up there, is he called on one of the local repeaters. Fortunately, he had one of the old printed repeater books with him, and he was calling out on the repeaters, and Ahim said he was calling out for about an hour or two before someone came back to him, and that was Tom. And he told Tom his situation, and Tom called 911. Now, the policy back then in Oregon was if a ham calls 911, it becomes the absolute top priority call for that call center to make sure that it is not dropped, especially if it's an emergency like that. Well, that is how they eventually got someone up there to help him from the Forestry Service. And Tom was in Portland a good 2.5, 3 hours away with no weather. Yeah, it was the Mount Hood repeater, which has very good coverage of the area.
That's a fur piece for a machine. That's pretty cool.
The terrain was very handy for that. Yeah. So that was my little story there, talking about how important some of the stuff is.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
the other thing too is um, Jeremiah had talked about using the USB-A cable to charge the batteries on the HTs. This is a Bioeno solar panel for one of my battery packs. It actually has a 5-volt regulated charge port on it.
Oh, nice.
And this is a 28-watt solar panel.
And where did you obtain that?
I got it from Ham Radio Outlet.
Okay. Definitely going to look into one of those to put in my go bag.
Yeah. And also, if you have something with a controller, they're chainable. So
Really?
you would take one and you would plug it into the next one, and then you would double the wattage.
Okay.
That's cool.
Last time we had power out here for about a day or 16 hours or something like that, I had both of these on the front porch, and family members are going out there plugging their phones in.
I
Well, that's
bet you
one way
that
to do
comes
it.
in handy at the campsites too.
Yep.
All right. Well, I know there's a lot of times that we go out with our families or friends, enjoy the outdoors or sporting event, go to town, walk around the mall. Um, never know when something's going to happen. And having your rig with you is definitely something that's going to be able to possibly save that person's life or your family. And can't go wrong with that because you don't need a cell tower. You don't have to worry about if the power's on there at the cell tower. You can go to national calling, and I don't know about all areas, but I know around here, national call is always monitored, whether it be VHF or UHF.
Yeah, in a lot of areas that are more rural, um, I've seen the national call is actually more monitored than uh, places that have like a lot of cell service and a lot of people close together. Um, Driving through North Carolina or New York City, I don't think I heard one person on the national call frequency even trying to chat with anybody.
Really?
Oh, and as a reminder for anybody who's planning on traveling to New York anytime soon, they just put in the Easy Pass tolls for congestion in New York City. So you will be billed to drive through New York City now. Just a heads up.
Just more and more fundage.
Well, they're trying to get people to carpool more, and they figure that's the way to do it.
Uh,
So,
Jonathan said there's a nightly rag net on national call in Portland, Oregon area. That's cool. I remember when
cool.
I first got ticketed. Um, I believe it was Saturday nights. It was either 7 or 8 o'clock of an evening, and you would hear 146.52 just start coming alive and hearing calls from Arkansas and Texas and I believe I remember hearing Louisiana in there a couple of times, and it was not necessarily a rag chew, but it would kept everybody to where we could always make sure we could get help and make sure your stations were working. They never called
Yeah.
it a net, but it was.
Well, I know when I first got my license, one of the training materials talked about Aurora skip,
Hmm.
and doing it on 2 meters and 6 meters. So that was something that I thought was always interesting. Never got it to work, but I have been able to use, 10, 20, and 40 and 80.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the other thing, the hurricane net on 80 meters and 40 meters.
Yep. 14 got
Um,
three and a quarter.
yeah, when people are in the islands and they've got the hurricane net going, um, and Greg just posted it, hamnets.org and netfinder.radio /nets. Two resources you can use for looking up different ham radio nets. There's also the hurricane net for DMR on Brandmeister, and I think there's one on TGIF too. Um, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I want to say the hurricane net is 3199 on Brandmeister.
I do believe so.
Um,
And yes, it is on Echolink as well.
and Paul in the YouTube chat, KF0ODD, he had a friend reach out to him 2 months ago doing POTA in the Rocky Mountains, and the friend had a medical emergency, and he was able to reach through a repeater, and he stayed on the repeater with him and on the radio until they got rescue help to him.
Hats off to you, sir.
So,
Hats off to you, sir.
Paul, as Jeremy said, hats off to you, sir. Thank you for doing that. It just goes to show it doesn't need to be simplex. You can use a repeater.
Yeah.
Because the repeater doesn't have to be, a linked repeater to be of service. As long as you've got a radio with a good gain antenna, you can use that, a J-pole antenna, a Yagi directional antenna, and I've seen some of the 2 meter ones that are like 7-element long Yagis for 2 meters.
Yeah.
They work really well. I used to have an antenna when I lived in Indiana that was outside of where I lived, that was a 2 meter 440 antenna, and it was a, for lack of a better term, tri-box shape. It had 3 squares that were connected, and it was balanced on the back end. So it was a very directional antenna, and I was able to hit repeaters 20 plus miles away with that antenna. So, and
cool.
Jeff has something. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, as I mentioned, we talked a lot about the technical part of it and the radio equipment, but things are being organized. Like if a Mayday call comes in, do you have a sheet of how to collect information in a orderly fashion where you can get the things, what the information you need to turn around and report this emergency quickly? Like first off, what's your location? Who are you? And that, what is it, the resources do you need? And that detail, and then at the end of how are we going to maintain contact? What's our plan here? And then you go relay, and then you can maintain that communication. And that, so you have an orderly way because you're going to be adrenaline's rushing, and the person you're going to have to take control a lot of times because the person's panicking. A lot of our Maydays are VHF Marine, and the boat's taking on water and out in the Gulf of Alaska or in cold water. So, you have someone very panicked. You want to, how you can maintain that orderly process, and that, And then the other part of it is the first part, the operator. What's your plan to maintain your health and safety while this emergency is going on? Do you have food? Do you have your medications? And that, can you cook? What do you need to so that your safety is taken care of so that you can render aid to others?
Yeah. For those who asked me about the box that I've got, the battery box, it's actually the PowerWorks PWR box -10, but they have all the way up to a 20 now. So you can do 10, 15, or 20 amp hour.
Oh, wow.
And it's still the same form factor size. So no
Really?
bigger than the box that I have.
I figured it'd be at least a little bit bigger.
And they also have boxes that you can get um, that can hold 40 amp hour, or yeah, it's pre-configured for 40 amp hour Bioenno batteries, and all you need to do is put the battery in it and plug the wires in.
Okay.
And David actually has a good comment. Said check with your local EMS or fire dispatcher. They've got forms, where you are, what's the emergency, etc. So
And Jeff was just showing his backup box. I like that very much so. Repurposed ammo can.
yes, just make sure everything's properly insulated and grounded. So
All right.
um, let's see. As far as snowstorms go, uh, blizzard conditions, making sure you've got your portable radio or a mobile radio, backup power supply, to charge the radios when you absolutely have to go out in conditions that could turn hairy very quickly. Even if the repeaters are up, definitely something that you can use. Um, Make sure you've got the repeaters programmed in for the area that you're going to. And if you're not sure, repeaterbook.com, you can put in the city, the state, the zip code. And if you get down to the nitty gritty, you can put in the grid square location, and see the repeaters in that area
Exactly.
and get those programmed in too. Jonathan also mentioned the repeater book app.
Exactly. Those are another big tool in our toolbox, just like with our radios. Um,
And correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the repeater book app, when you open it, download the latest list of repeaters?
I do believe so.
That way it'll still work when you don't have internet access.
Yeah. When I for mine, when I set up the app, I had to go in and allow it to download offline, and it done it. I think at midnight when it done it on mine, but I put it on my tablet and not my cell phone. I know one this past event that was out on the West Coast, 10 meters was hopping all up and down the coast from, let's see, I heard stations from Pasadena, Ventura, LA, uh, Cathedral City. Yeah, I knew that would get your attention.
Yeah, I
Uh,
used to live there.
and then the canyon, they were all relaying information uh, back and forth of power outages, live lines down, traffic issues, people stranded. Saw some footage of them too, and it was gnarly. And it looks like we got somebody that's in that area that popped in. Hello there, Mr. Adam. I hope all is well out there with you in the big LA area that has just been ravished by the fires out there. He can't hear you. Um, I know uh, a lot of the folks were out there that was probably associated with maybe CERT teams or OES helping relay information for evac. I can't be 100% sure, but from just listening to the traffic, that's what it sounded like. People giving routes to get out of those affected areas that was the safest at the time. I know there was one news clip that I saw where it showed LA County dozer just mowing through vehicles that were just abandoned in the middle of the highway just so they could get apparatus through to start fighting the fire in that area.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Ah, I got you now.
All right. Yeah, it was actually crazy out there. I actually got a few pictures. I'll show you guys here in a minute. But the fires out there were intense. They were going on there. I actually got pictures from about 5 miles away as well as right up close. The 5 miles away, you could still see the flames were huge and massive, and it looked like they were 10 feet from you.
Yeah. Did you happen to hear any traffic on your local machines or simplex out there during this event?
I was mainly on the command channel, so I didn't really listen to a lot of that, but I did hear one instance actually while I was over there in command. And there was this guy, he was an elderly man and couldn't get out of his house, and he was having issues because he couldn't walk. And a couple guys heard this over the radio, hopped in their truck, drove up there, through the fires, picked him up, put him in the back of the truck, drove right back down the hill and got him out of there.
Very excellent tool. And these are just examples of a few things that is just within the past, probably, I'd say 60 days, where amateur radio has really became a popular tool to use. I strongly suggest anybody that is licensed to make sure that those around you, you can check on them. Elderly, folks that are handicapped, folks that may not have a vehicle big enough to transport them and their family to safety. That way you can at least help them get to safety and or be able to get help into where you're at. One of the biggest reasons I got into amateur radio was to help people. Down here, growing up, everybody, and I do mean everybody, had a CB at their house. One of those systems that sat on your desk that was about 2.5 foot wide and about 6 inches tall, and they had a big 102-inch whip out the window. Yeah.
Yeah. The Galaxies are the President's series from Unit N.
Up around here, they called them the redneck cell phone.
Yeah. When I lived in Muncie, Indiana, they had a lot of people that had modified Galaxy base stations that they were using for CB radio.
I wasn't kind of laughing at you. I was laughing at the comment that Jonathan posted.
Oh yeah, I saw that comment too. And the first thing that came to my mind is 10 speed. Does it change the channel each time you shift gears?
Change the ground plane a bit.
Just a little bit. Man. Change the SWR.
Well, Adam, I'm glad to see that you're safe. Glad to hear from you. It's been a very long time since we got to see you, got to talk to you. Glad to see that you didn't get affected directly with the fires. I know you and I messaged a couple of times, and you said that it was within just 4 to 5 miles to 6 miles at one point from your home QTH. There again, I'm very glad to see that you're doing well and everything is intact.
Yeah, it was about 5 miles from us. It was right up here. We were in the evacuation zone. They have since lifted the evacuation zone. We are back here. We are good. But the fires were just intense and crazy, and I was up there helping and up there with some crews and doing what I could, doing my part. But, you know, we're still not out of the woods. We still got a whole nother set of problems and issues to deal with because now we got the rains coming, so we're going to have mudslides and flooding and a whole bunch of other issues that are going to have to happen after this whole aftermath of the fires. So we're just at the beginning of it, and the good news is Palisades is about 22% contained, and the Eaton fire is, I believe, about 54% contained. So we're doing pretty good on our 2 huge fires.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that the containment number is getting larger. Until that means the fire is getting smaller. So I'm very pleased to hear that. Just a quick question. You said you was monitoring the command channel. What rig were you using?
Actually, I was just going through my cell phone because I had the direct
Oh, okay.
link to it through the CADs that we have out here in the city through our programs.
Oh,
But I
really?
did have my
That's pretty cool.
Mhm. But I did have my 878 with me, and I was listening occasionally to. I was checking in on Sky Wolf. I didn't hear of anyone on there. I checked in on USA once or twice, and then I was listening to Papa Chat most of the time when I had an extra chance, and that was popping.
Yeah, I did use the DMR bridge to Papa Chat, and I mean it was bumper to bumper.
Mhm.
That was intense. It definitely at some separate points during that whole the initial rush of everything. So once again, glad to see you're safe. Thanks for joining up. I just wanted to check in with you. I know there are others that are out there on the West Coast, but I know you and I have been in contact. So that's the reason I popped you in to, so we get an update live from the field per
Yeah.
se. Um, all right. Anybody have any other incidents to where?
You want to turn on share for a second?
Pardon?
You want to enable sharing for a second?
Yeah, give me 1 second here.
Anybody have any other instances or examples to where their radio became that very precious tool to help somebody else that was in dire need? Looking through the gallery here.
Can you guys see my screen or no?
Yeah.
You see the fire on the screen?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Holy smokes.
Oops. I don't know. There we go. So as you guys could see, it was very intense over there.
Yeah.
Now, Jeremiah, in relation to Adam, which way were you, and do you know if your old place was affected by these fires?
Where I lived was not affected. I lived right next to Palm Springs.
Yeah,
So
he
it
was
would
a
have
little
kind of,
place. I actually know a bunch of people that were out here, and all of them, while their houses were burning, they all fled to Palm Springs.
yeah, which explains why a couple of friends complained about they had to cancel maintenance on their house or apartment because they couldn't afford the hotel room now because the hotel room prices spiked. Which
Yeah.
that's sad to see hotels price gouge people that are already dealing with tragedy.
Very much so. And that's not just out there. That happens to a lot of places.
Yes. As of today, according to fire.california.gov, Palisades is at 22%. Eaton is at 55% contained. The Hearst fire is at 98% contained, and the auto fire in Ventura counties is at 85% contained. So they are making headway.
I know from out here, a local wildland crew or crews went out to assist, and they are at the Canyon
Mandeville.
Fire.
Yeah, they're at the Canyon Fire. They were at Mandeville.
Yeah, that place. And my thoughts and prayers for safety and protection, and then also for just being able to be with everybody out there, not just the firefighters, first responders, medics, and then those that were affected. Um, my thoughts, my prayers go out to each and every one of them.
Likewise.
Yeah, I know a bunch of people that lost their houses, their businesses, a whole bunch of stuff out there. It's horrible. But we'll rebuild stronger.
All right. Okay,
Right.
let's see. Does anybody else have anything else to bring up?
Let's see.
Oh, hang on.
I see Jonathan waving his hand. Bring him
Yeah,
back up here.
You getting it?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
All
Go
right,
ahead, sir.
Heather, Another example, it actually happened to the mayor of the town I live in now, who lives down the road from me. A couple of years ago, a couple of tornadoes ripped through my county, one right after another. The mayor went out with the local volunteer fire department to go check on the assessment damage from a property a couple miles that way. And someone was monitoring the radar and radioed him on the ham radio through one of the local repeaters, telling him, you guys need to take cover now. And like within 5 minutes, he was telling me that the next tornado came through, and if they weren't warned, they would have been gone.
Yeah, definitely a way to make sure that your keister stays safe. uh, Somebody else sees something and tell you to bug out or find a hole. And
Yeah.
that's one reason I like it here in Oklahoma. Yeah, we get the brutal cold, then we get the brutal heat, and then, like most people say here, we have 3 winters or 3 summers and 1 winter. We kind of bypass fall and spring anymore. But
What's fall and spring?
exactly,
Well,
at
fall's that
least
thing
with
that happens when you fall out of the chair, and spring is that thing that usually pops when you're trying to replace the strut on your car and flies past your head.
at least out here when we've got severe weather that will definitely relocate or mess up your normal lifestyle routines is a tornado. And it's easy. I can get out of its way, or I can find me a hole to get in. So I'm thankful for, even though they are deadly and nasty and destructive, for the weather I have, because I can see it coming and get out of its way.
Radio go bag's a good idea too.
Yeah,
Yes.
very much. In my go bag, well, it's a Pelican case. I have a G90 that's mounted in it. I have 2 LiPo batteries. I've got some little, they're Phoenix Industry T3 lights that are steady burn white, and one amber that we can use for lighting. It does have a port that I put into the side of it for an end-fed, a piece of coax to go to a vertical. I also have a dual band rig in it. Um, I've got a port going on the side for it as well. And let's see what else. Uh, I've got one of our local uh, radios that pick up the local sheriff's office, EMS, fire, and etc. That we can deploy at a moment's notice, be able to hear what's going on when we go to the cellar. It's also pretty fun when you go out and throw a wire up in a tree at a park.
One thing that I thought was interesting was taking the G90 with that red red battery case that I've got up to the top of the tram in Palm Springs and setting it up with that oh, who is that?
The
It's
glove
not Diamond,
box.
it's the other company. Comet. Toy box antenna. And then people would come over and ask me what I'm doing, and then they'd start asking about how can they get their license and stuff like that. Because they would start hearing these other stations coming in that were calling POTA or calling CQ. So that was definitely something as well.
Um, I just saw Paul's comment. I like that idea. That would be cool.
Yes, that is actually um, right after the Skywarn training in Indiana. Me and Andy had did that, and um, not shortly after that is when the storms came through. So
Okay.
at one point, I was Skywarn trained for the National Weather Service in Indianapolis. And I actually got to go into the National Weather Service headquarters in Indianapolis and see the radar equipment and all that stuff up close. That was awesome.
A playground.
Like, oh, there's a radio, and there's a radio, and there's a really fast computer, and there's a faster computer, and
Yeah, you don't have to throw the coffee beans at it.
no.
All right. Um,
All right,
what is
one
the
last
most
call.
popular way to get y'all's information relayed in your areas? Is it FM analog, DMR, All Star, Echolink?
I know in Indiana for Aries it was the well, at least in Indianapolis it was the 700 repeater, the 146.700 repeater in Indianapolis. That was the one they always did the Aries net on. And that's something you can listen to too. If you've got a scanner that can pick up 2 meter, even if you don't have your license, um, listen to the Aries net. Find out when they're doing it in your area and listen to how they do the net, how they take the check-ins, how the net is run, because a lot of nets base their net uh, on that formula.
Yeah. Now I know Dr. Greg up there in Green Country, to my knowledge, that is the only area that has a super saturation of 220. Um, I don't know, maybe Dr. Greg can uh, chime in with this as well, but I don't know if their 220 network also crosses into the 2 meter and the 440 network. Not. But if it did, that would be pretty cool. And Jeff, that is a very good point. 90% of the time, listening to the radio is going to be more a faster method of knowing where the storms are than it's going to be coming across the TV.
Very true. Because you've got the weather spotters that are right there on the radio, and unless they've got somebody who's directly radioed into the weather room at the news stations, there's going to be a
Exactly.
delay.
Dr. Greg, is y'all's 220 network uh, fed in or crossed over into the 2 meter and the 440 network in your area?
At this point, it's not. There's about 10 or 11 220 repeaters in the Northeast Oklahoma area. And right now they're just on the 220 network. I don't know of any of them that are cross-linking into 2 meter or 70 centimeter, either one.
Okay. I didn't realize that 220 was that popular until I was up there. What was it? A year ago, 2 years ago, there at y'all's Hamfest up there at Green Country. Which,
Yeah.
by the way, if anybody's in the area, that's definitely a good one to go to be able to get new gear, swap out gear, and be able to link up. And who knows, may even be able to take your test while you're there and walk out with as a licensed tech or higher. But Greg, I appreciate that. That was something that I thought was pretty cool and
Yeah.
personally fascinating that 220 was alive and strong in that area.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. They're Northeast Oklahoma currently operating repeaters in Northeast Oklahoma. There's about 80 repeaters total in Northeast Oklahoma, and all different bands, all different protocols, if you will. DMR, P25, NXDN, D-Star, you name it. So there is quite the density of repeaters up here. So
Yeah.
but that's a good thing for us.
Yeah. I was looking, as a matter of fact, last week when we had all the snow and ice down here, um, I found a machine. It's a 440 out of McAllister that is linked to Tulsa.
Yep.
And I couldn't hear nothing. And I was like, I wonder if I can get into it. I tried, and apparently I wasn't standing just right and holding my finger on top of my head just right and all that good stuff to make the trip. But uh, I think it'd be pretty interesting to be able to talk that far uh, up into the Northeast. But
Yep.
I think I'm going to have to get a little bit of height and a little bit of oomph behind my UHF to make that distance.
Yeah. McAllister is on a 444-625. That's part of the SuperLink system. It's got an 88.5 PL tone.
Okay.
So on both transmit and receive both. So you need it on both sides. But yeah, it's part of the SuperLink system. And so part of that network of 16 repeaters that I talked about earlier.
Okay.
Um, not too far from you guys several years ago, the Joplin tornado in
Yeah.
Joplin, Missouri. Um, Now, if I remember the story correctly, the hospital, I think it was Mercy Hospital in Joplin, got severely damaged,
Yeah.
and some amateur radio operators set up their own portable tower and stuff, and other radio operators went to the other hospitals in the surrounding area, and they basically played relay between the hospitals for transporting patients, what was going on, and all of that to
Yeah.
make sure that the emergency traffic was getting routed to the correct hospital, which ones could handle traumas and which ones are
Yeah.
general stitches and broken bones and which ones were worse than the traumas.
Yeah.
Yeah, done the triage on it.
Yeah, that's why they do the hospital net. They have a hospital net that the Tulsa Aries group does 4 times a year, where they send. You have to have you have to have a background check and all that to be able to go into the hospitals, but you actually operate the amateur radio equipment that's on site at the hospital, and then check back into the net to where they're running master net control at, and just verify, can you hear the different hospitals around the area, trying to map out the coverage so that they know what it looks like before the actual emergency happens. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
memory serves me correct. Uh, I think y'all just had one in December, wasn't it?
on the set event,
I
an
remember
emergency
getting
test.
the emergency net, and you were one of the controllers, I believe, for DMR.
Yeah, that was probably, you're maybe thinking about, there was one in October that I was
October.
involved in. But yeah, they're planning. I can't remember when they said the next one is, but I think they said February, but I'm not 100% sure on the date right off the top of my head.
Well, I know all I did was listen in, um, but that was pretty cool. The way y'all
Yep.
executed everything,
Yep.
the information going across, that was awesome.
Yeah. Well, and the WinLink plays a big part of what we're doing as well, which, a lot of people talk about radio, and that's great, right? But in a situation, you need to be able to pass email. You need to be able to use ICS forms that FEMA and other agencies use. And so we have a weekly WinLink net where we're going through and we're utilizing different ICS forms, filling those out, sending those back in, right? So that people that are involved in ARIES, it's not just a once or twice a year you use it and then you go, wait, I forgot how to do that. Because you can also send pictures via WinLink. So you're an RF, radio link in the computer, and you can send a picture of a damage situation or whatever. So no internet involved at all.
Sorry about that. My local machine started trying to key up. Yeah, the WinLink I've seen from down around this area, there's only two people that utilize it that I know of.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but that's just the ones that I know of. Adam said that out there they have a dedicated frequencies for data. Yeah, that would be awful handy as well, so they're not tying up both voice and
Yeah.
on the machine. Um, Greg, I appreciate it, and if everything goes well, the creek don't rise too high, I'm gonna try to be up there for Green Country.
Yeah. That's April 11th and 12th this year.
Come up there and visit you and Miss Judy.
Yeah.
All right, appreciate it, Dr. Greg.
You're
All
welcome.
right, anybody have anything else that pertains to radio that they want to talk about or ask a question of or anything along those lines?
Well, it looks like Jeff said that his club worked that tornado. I'm assuming you mean the Joplin tornado, Jeff? He says yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That was during the time I was driving a truck, and I actually went through there uh, shortly after that happened, and just seeing everything torn apart. And if you didn't cry at least a tear seeing all that damage or seeing the damage with the one that was in I think it was Norman, Oklahoma, where the high school got hit.
May 3rd, 1999.
Yeah, that I would ask what is wrong if it doesn't make your heart hurt to see that damage and realize how many people's lives were affected because of Mother Nature.
I'll never forget that date, and I'll never forget that storm. That was my first storm that I chased from the moment it touched down north of Lindsay, Oklahoma, all the way to where it made its hook back to the east along Highway 9 towards Norman and Moore. At one point, I was right around a quarter of a mile behind it. And that was utter devastation.
Yeah. All right. So, Lord Lenny says he was in the truck stop in Big Cabin, Oklahoma, when that storm went through.
I will have to say this much. I know Paul, uh, he ain't here in the States, but I know we got wildfires, we got tornadoes, we got ice storms and snowstorms and floods and all that good stuff. Do you have anything out your way that's been a hindrance to y'all that is I would consider a seasonal type thing?
Excuse me. Not a sneeze unless it makes your back pop.
All right.
All right. Give me just a second. The drawing is done for BC Plus, so let me get that page pulled up real quick.
All right. Lord Benny's already putting his order in. And Paul, I copied your traffic. Um, I'm glad that that's about the only thing that y'all got to worry about. I figured I didn't think y'all would get that much severe weather in that area.
Okay, looks like they don't have a camera, but I do have our winner, and it's somebody
Ah,
that has not won in over 6 months.
who we got? Who we got?
Actually, like 8 months. Um, Mike Canada, KN4DRN.
All right, let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Mike, are you in the house?
Yep, I see him. Just need him to type in the chat if you can.
Oh, there was a lot
Yep,
of them that just
he's
flashed
here.
across my screen. Hey,
Yep.
congrats. Round of applause. Round of applause, Mike.
All right. So give me just a second, Mike. And well, actually, Mike isn't from Canada. I don't think, because he's got a US call sign. Um, so give me just a second. Let me get the prize wall here. Um, if I can figure out where it went. Come on now. I just had this.
Come on, Jarvis.
Yeah, I know. Processing, please wait.
I thought they installed more memory.
Hold on.
Oh wow. You know, you're lucky that the normal ones that are usually here that give grief on stuff like that ain't here tonight. If they are,
Oh,
they've just been really quiet.
yes. All right, let's get this over on the other screen and share that screen. And Okay, Mike, here is the prize wall. So if you could, please let us know in the chat which one of the prizes you see on the prize wall that you would like. Just so you know, we do have the 168s in stock right now, ready to go. Maximizer upgrade. All right. I will
Nice.
get that put together for you. And the Maximizer upgrade, just to be clear, is an upgrade for the Skybridge Plus unit to become a Skybridge Max. It is not actually a Skybridge Max hotspot. So just to double check that. So let me go ahead and get this closed back out.
Tim, I just saw your message. 73s, take care, and we'll catch you next week.
Okay, Mike. If your Skybridge is using WPSD, then that is more than likely the Skybridge Max, unless you've had a tech support call recently where we've changed the software. But as long as your shipping information is correct, I will go ahead and get you the order put in the RMA for sending your Skybridge in so we can get the Maximizer done. Greg, thank you as always for being here. You have a great night and have fun on the Tulsa Aries net. See, there's an Aries net.
Hey, you ought to, Dr. Greg, before you leave, you ought to throw up the frequency that we may have somebody else to be able at least to listen to it. There you go, 146.88.
Right, 146.88. And looks like Paul is heading out too. Said it's
73, sir.
2:13 in the morning in Ireland.
That's dedication. Thank you.
Thank you. Get some rest, Paul. And to everybody else for being here tonight, thank you for being here. And thank you to all of our YouTube viewers. Thank you for being here as well. And we will catch you guys not next Thursday, but the Saturday following that for the 168 plug and play special. So check your email for that. Also check bridgecomsystems.com if you haven't got the email about signing up for that already. And 73s.
73s.